cold bit differently that night. It wasn't just the crisp, high desert air of rural New Mexico. It was a deeper, more primal chill that seemed to seep right into your bones. I was a freshman in college, and my astronomy club was having its annual star party. We'd driven hours out into the middle of nowhere to a spot renowned for its dark skies, far from the city's light pollution. There were about 12 of us, a mix of seasoned stargazers and newbies like me, all buzzing with excitement. Our professor, Dr. Eris, had given us the ground rules. The most important one was about light discipline. Once our eyes adapted to the dark, any white light would ruin our night vision for at least 30 minutes. So, it was red light headlamps only. The soft, crimson glow was just enough to see our equipment without blinding everyone. We set up our telescopes, a small constellation of tripods and lenses pointing towards the heavens. The Milky Way was a breathtaking smear of cosmic dust and distant suns, more vivid than I had ever seen. The first few hours were magical. We spotted Jupiter's moons, the rings of Saturn, and even a faint nebula that looked like a ghost in the eyepiece. The only sounds were the hushed whispers of discovery, the occasional click of a camera shutter, and the gentle hum of the tracking motors on the more advanced telescopes. Around midnight, a few people started packing up, their enthusiasm waning as the cold intensified. Soon, it was just me, my friend Liam, a senior named Chloe, and Dr. Eris. That's when the strangeness began. It started with a sound, a faint, rhythmic crunching from the scrubland beyond our little clearing. We all poosed our red-lit faces, turning towards the darkness. Dr. Aris, a local who'd grown up hearing all the old tales, just shrugged it off. Probably a coyote or a javelina, he said, his voice a low murmur. They're curious. We tried to ignore it, turning our attention back to the stars, but the sound didn't stop. It seemed to be circling us, always just at the edge of our vision, a slow, deliberate patrol. Liam, ever the skeptic, decided to be brave. He shined his powerful red flashlight in the direction of the noise. The beam cut through the dark, illuminating twisted junipers and sagebrush, but nothing else. "See! Nothing," he announced, though his voice wavered slightly. He swept the beam back and forth a few times before clicking it off. We stood in silence, listening. The crunching had stopped. A collective unspoken sigh of relief passed between us. Maybe it really had been just an animal. Scared off by the light, we went back to our telescopes. I was trying to locate the Andromeda Galaxy when Chloe let out a small, sharp gasp. I looked over at her. Her face, bathed in the glow of her headlamp, was pale. "What is it?" I whispered. She didn't answer. She just pointed, her hand trembling towards the edge of our clearing. My heart hammered against my ribs. I followed her finger, my eyes straining to pierce the gloom. At first, I saw nothing. Then, I saw it. Or rather, I saw the absence of it. One of the large, gnarled juniper bushes that marked the boundary of our sight looked different. It was darker, a solid, unmoving mass. Against the stardusted horizon, it was too tall. It wasn't a bush. Dr. Eris must have seen it too, because he spoke in a tone that was unnervingly calm. "Nobody move," he said, his voice barely audible. "And don't look directly at it." His warning came too late for me. I was already staring, mesmerized by the shape. It was vaguely humanoid, but impossibly thin and elongated. It stood perfectly still, a statue carved from shadow. This is where the real terror began. My headlamp was on, casting a cone of red light. Liam and Chloe had theirs on too. Dr. Aris was fumbling with his gear, his back, to ooze. In the overlapping crimson glow, I could see the three of them clearly. Liam was by his expensive Dobsonian telescope. Chloe was near her smaller Schmidt, and Dr. Aris was a few feet away, near the supply box. 3 people. And me. That's 4. Our red headlamps outlined forebodies. But then, as my eyes darted nervously between my friends, I counted again. Liam, Chloe, Dr. Aris, me, and one more near the edge of the light's reach. Another figure was illuminated. It was hunched over, its silhouette outlined in the same eerie red as ours, an extra body. It wasn't the tall shadow I'd seen by the juniper. This was something else. Something within our circle. My blood ran cold. It hadn't been circling us. It had joined us. I opened my mouth to scream, but the sound died in my throat. It was a strangled squeak. Liam saw it at the same moment. His face went slack with disbelief, then contorted in pure fear. "Who's that?" he whispered, his voice cracking. The fifth figure slowly straightened up. It was wearing clothes similar to ours, a dark hoodie, jeans, but its movements were all wrong. They were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being controlled by an unskilled puppeteer. Its head tilted at an angle that would have snapped a human neck, and though its face was hidden in the shadow of its hood, I could feel its gaze on me. A wave of nausea washed over me. The air grew heavy, thick with a smell like wet fur and decay. Dr. Aris spun around, his own headlamp catching the figure. "Get in the car," he hissed, his professional calm completely gone, replaced by raw panic. "Now. Leave. Everything." He started shoving us towards his old Suburban, his hands shaking violently. No one argued. We scrambled, tripping over our own feet, abandoning thousands of dollars of equipment without a second thought. As I fumbled for the car door, I risked one last glance back. The figure was taking a step towards us. It was slow, deliberate, and then it did something that will haunt my nightmares for the rest of my life. It raised a hand to its face, and from beneath the hood, a voice whispered my name. But it wasn't a human voice. It was a perfect imitation of Chloe's gasp from moments before, twisted into a mocking, drawn-out syllable. "Jake." We piled into the Suburban, slamming and locking the doors. Dr. Aris jammed the key into the ignition, his hands trembling so badly it took him 3 tries to get it to turn. The engine roared to life, and the headlights blazed on, flooding the clearing with brilliant, beautiful white light. For a split second, the figure was caught in the beams. It wasn't wearing a hoodie. Its head was too large. Its skin looked like stretched, leathery hide, and its eyes glowed with a faint, malevolent red of their own. It shrieked, a sound that was part animal scream, part grinding metal, and recoiled from the light, scrambling back into the darkness with impossible speed. Dr. Aris stomped on the gas. The Suburban fishtailed on the dirt track as we sped away, leaving our telescopes and the star party behind. No one spoke for the entire 2-hour drive back to campus. The silence was heavier than any words could have been. We just stared out the windows, seeing that lanky, red-eyed form in every shadow the headlights created. When we finally reached the safety of the city lights, Dr. Aris pulled over. He turned to look at us, his face. "You will not speak of this to anyone," he said, his voice grave. "What you saw tonight, it's not meant for the world to know. Some things are best left in the dark." We never went back for the equipment. The astronomy club listed it as stolen. We never had another star party in that part of the state. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I think I can still hear that sound of faint crunching, like something walking on dry earth, circling just outside my window. And sometimes, I hear a whisper on the wind, a perfect imitation of a familiar voice, calling my name from the darkness. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've had a similar encounter, share it in the comments below. Stay safe out there, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales. See you next time. The forest at night has a language of its own. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, it all whispers stories. But some stories you don't want to hear. My friends Leo, Chloe, and I learned that the hard way. We were deep in the Allegheny National Forest, 3 days into a week-long camping trip. We loved the isolation, the feeling of being the only people for miles. That night, the air was unusually still, and the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. We were sitting around our campfire, the flames dancing and casting long, distorted shadows that looked like grasping fingers. Around midnight, a twig snapped nearby. Not a small snap, like a squirrel or a raccoon. This was heavy, deliberate. Leo grabbed a flashlight, shining it into the impenetrable darkness beyond our camp. The beam cut through the black, but revealed nothing. He shrugged, trying to play it cool, but I saw the unease in his eyes. Then we heard it again, a slow, heavy footstep. And another. Someone was walking towards us. Slowly. We all froze, our campfire chatter dying instantly. Who would be out here, this deep in the woods, at this hour? A figure emerged from the darkness, stepping into the edge of our firelight. He was tall and lean, dressed in a crisp park ranger uniform. The badge on his chest glinted in the firelight. He had a kind-weathered face, but his eyes were dark and seemed to hold a strange intensity. "Evening, folks," he said, his voice calm, but with an underlying edge I couldn't quite place. "Sorry to disturb you, just doing my rounds." Leo, always the friendly one, offered him a seat. "Everything all right, Ranger?" he asked. The man didn't smile. He just kept his eyes fixed on the trail that led deeper into the woods behind our camp. "Not exactly," the ranger replied, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "There's something out there tonight, something dangerous. I need you to pack up your camp now and head back the way you came. Don't go any further down this trail." Chloe, ever the skeptic, spoke up. "Dangerous. Like a bear." The ranger shook his head slowly, never taking his eyes off the trail. "No, not a bear. Something else. Something unnatural. I can't explain it, but I've seen what it can do. It's not safe. You need to leave." His tone was so serious, so filled with genuine fear, that it sent a shiver down my spine. The air grew colder. He pointed down the trail. "Whatever you do, don't go that way." Who's to turn back? He didn't wait for our questions. He simply turned and melted back into the darkness as silently as he had appeared. For a moment, we just sat there, stunned. The woods suddenly felt hostile, the shadows menacing. The ranger's warning echoed in our minds. Something unnatural. We didn't need any more convincing. We packed up in a frantic, panicked rush, throwing our gear into our packs. The whole time, I felt like we were being watched. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound made us jump. We abandoned our plans for the rest of the week, started the long hike back to the main ranger station near the park entrance. We didn't talk much. We walked, fueled by adrenaline and a growing sense of dread. The moon was hidden by clouds, and our headlamps barely seemed to pierce the oppressive darkness. It felt like the forest itself was trying to swallow us whole. Hours passed. The sun was just beginning to paint the sky with hues of orange and pink when we finally stumbled out of the tree line and saw the familiar wooden sign of the main ranger station. Relief washed over me so intensely my knees felt weak. A rail ranger, a friendly-looking woman with a warm smile, was just starting her morning routine. We must have looked like a wreck, because her smile faded into a look of concern. "Are you three all right? You look like you've seen a ghost." Leo, still shaken, explained what had happened. "We met one of your colleagues last night," he said. "He told us to turn back. Said there was something dangerous on the trail." The ranger frowned, her brow furrowing in confusion. "A colleague? That's impossible." She looked at her duty roster on the wall. "I was the only ranger on duty for this entire sector last night. There was no one else out there. Especially not that deep into the forest." A cold, heavy dread settled in the pit of my stomach. "But we saw him," Chloe stammered. "He was wearing a uniform, a badge." Warnedius, the ranger's face went pale. She looked from the roster, to us, and then out towards the forest. "What exactly did he say?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I repeated his words. He said there was something unnatural. He told us not to go further down the trail. The ranger's eyes widened in what looked like pure terror. She leaned forward, her voice trembling. Did he look human? I mean, completely human. I thought back to the man's dark, intense eyes. The way he moved so silently, The way the firelight seemed to dance strangely on his skin. I don't know, I admitted. It was dark, but his voice, it was a little off, almost like he was mimicking a person. The ranger sank into her chair, burying her face in her hands. When she looked up, all the warmth was gone from her face, replaced by a fear I will never forget. There are old stories, she said, her voice shaking. Legends the local tribes talk about. Creatures that can mimic voices, change their shape. They lure people deeper into the woods. Or sometimes they warn them away. She took a deep breath. They say if you hear your name called from the trees, you never answer. If you see something that looks almost human, you run. You were lucky. Whatever that was, it didn't want you on its territory last night. We stood there in horrified silence. The man we met wasn't a ranger. He wasn't there to protect us. He was the very thing he was warning us about. He wasn't telling us to turn back for our safety. He was telling us to get off his hunting ground. We never went back to those woods. Sometimes, late at night, I can still hear that voice, calm and clear, warning us away. And I wonder, what if we hadn't listened? What was waiting for us, just a little further down that trail? The crisp mountain air felt like a reward after our grueling 4-hour hike. Me, Liam, Chloe, and Ben had finally reached Eagle's Peak, a scenic overlook famous for its panoramic views of the sprawling valley below. We were exhausted but exhilarated. The sun was beginning its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and purple. It was the perfect moment, the kind you want to bottle up and keep forever. All right, everyone, picture time, Chloe announced, pulling out her phone. We gathered at the edge of the cliff, a rickety wooden railing, the only thing between us and a dizzying drop. The wind whipped our hair around as we huddled together, grinning from ear to ear. Liam, always the goofball, made a silly face, and Chloe snapped the picture. "Let me see," I said, leaning over her shoulder. The photo was perfect. The sunset was spectacular, and our tired but happy faces told the story of our adventure. But as I looked closer, my smile faded. "Wait, what's that?" I pointed to a figure standing among the trees in the background, just beyond the clearing. Chloe zoomed in. It was blurry, but it was undeniably a person, or at least person-shaped. It was tall and unnaturally thin, partially obscured by the thick pine branches. "Who's that?" Ben asked, squinting at the screen. "There's no one else up here." He was right. We hadn't seen another soul for the last 2 hours of the hike. The trail was notoriously difficult, and most people turned back long before reaching the summit. "Probably just another hiker who took a different path," Liam suggested, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the unease in his voice. "Let's take another one, just in case." We posed again, this time a little less enthusiastically. Chloe snapped the photo and immediately checked it. Her face went pale. "It's closer," she whispered, her voice trembling. We all crowded around her phone. The figure was still there, but it had moved out from behind the trees. It was now standing at the edge of the woods, its form clearer, yet somehow more disturbing. It was gaunt, with limbs that seemed too long for its body. Its head was tilted at an odd, unnatural angle, and its eyes, even in the pixelated image, they seemed to glow faintly in the twilight. A cold dread washed over me, a primal fear that had nothing to do with the height. "Okay, this isn't funny," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Who is that?" No one answered. The wind suddenly felt colder, carrying a low, guttural sound from the direction of the woods. It sounded like something between a growl and a human cough. "We need to leave," Ben said, his eyes darting nervously toward the tree line. Now. We didn't need any more convincing. We hastily packed our bags, our earlier joy completely replaced by annoying terror. We didn't dare look back toward the woods. Chloe was fumbling with her phone, her hands shaking so much she could barely operate it. "I'm deleting them," she said, her voice choked with panic. "I don't want these pictures." "Wait," Liam stopped her. "We might need them. As proof. Or something." His logic was thin, but in that moment of sheer panic, it made a strange kind of sense. We started our descent, practically running down the steep, rocky path. The sun had dipped below the horizon, plunging the forest into a deep, unsettling darkness. We switched on our headlamps, their beams cutting narrow tunnels through the oppressive blackness. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent a fresh jolt of fear through us. The forest, which had felt so beautiful and serene on the way up, now seemed menacing and alive. We could hear it following us. It wasn't just in our heads. There was a distinct sound of heavy, uneven footsteps crashing through the underbrush, always just beyond the reach of our lights. Sometimes it sounded like it was on two legs. Other times, it was a four-legged scrabble. The sound would stop when we stopped, and start again when we moved. It was toying with us. Chloe whimpered, stumbling over a root. Ben grabbed her arm, pulling her up. "Don't look back," he commanded, his voice tight. "Just keep moving." Then we heard a voice that chilled me to the bone. It was a perfect imitation of Liam's. "Guys, wait up." I think I twisted my ankle. It called from somewhere behind us, in the darkness. We all froze. Liam was right beside me, his eyes wide with terror. "That's not me," he mouthed, his face ashen. The voice called out again, a note of desperation in its mimicry. "Please, don't leave me here. It's getting closer. It's trying to separate us," I realized, the words catching in my throat. The stories my grandfather used to tell me, tales from the reservation whispered around campfires, came flooding back. Stories of the skinwalker, the shapeshifter, the imitator. It could mimic voices, lure you away from the safety of your group. "Don't listen to it. Run," I screamed. We broke into a frantic sprint, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We ignored the burning in our lungs and the ache in our legs. The sounds behind us grew more frantic, more monstrous. The mimicry of Liam's voice dissolved into a series of horrific noises. A coyote's howl, a woman's scream, and a dry, rattling hiss that seemed to come from all directions at once. We could see the faint glow of the parking lot lights through the trees ahead. Safety was so close. With a final, desperate burst of speed, we broke through the tree line and tumbled into the gravel lot, collapsing next to our car. We scrambled inside, locking the doors, our chests heaving. For a moment there was only the sound of our ragged breathing. Then, a heavy thud slammed against the car's roof, making us all scream. Another thud hit the driver's side window, a loud, wet smack. We didn't dare look. Liam fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking violently. The engine roared to life, and he slammed the car into reverse, tires screeching on the gravel. As we sped, I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. In T-brief of terrifying flash of the taillights, I saw it. Standing at the edge of the parking lot was the tall, emaciated figure from the photo. Its head was cocked to the side, and its glowing eyes watched us go. As the distance grew, its form seemed to melt and distort, collapsing onto all fours before disappearing back into the impenetrable darkness of the woods. We drove the whole way back in silence. The radio off, the shared, unspoken terror, a heavy blanket in the car. We never went back to Eagle's Peak. We never spoke of what happened that night. Not in detail, but we all knew. Chloe deleted the photos the next day, but the images burned into my mind forever. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the quiet of the night, I can still hear it. A faint whisper on the wind, a voice calling from the darkness, a voice that sounds exactly like one of my friends. It's a constant reminder that some trails should never be hiked, and some photos should never be taken, because you might just capture something extra in the frame, something that doesn't want its picture taken, something that will follow you home. I work trail maintenance for the state, mostly on the high ridges where storms carve out the switchbacks and hikers lose their bearings. Ridge 47 was my assignment on October 12th. The directive was simple. Check the markers, update the GPS coordinates, and clear any fallen rock before snow season. Dispatch joked that the ridge was bad luck after sundown. I told her I didn't believe in that. I loaded my pack, locked the truck, and started the climb as the last bands of sunlight thinned across the canyon. The ridge opened wide above the tree line, washed in pale light. The air smelled like cold stone and old pine bark. My boots pressed into loose gravel with a steady rhythm while the handheld GPS ticked its coordinates in soft beeps. I listened for wildlife, but the canyon stayed oddly quiet. No birds, no buzzing insects, not even the usual creak of branches. I told myself the season was changing and left it at that. I settled into my pace and counted trail markers out of habit. The rock underfoot felt solid and predictable. The faint metallic scent in the wind was not. It passed so quickly that I almost doubted it, like a breath of cold iron that faded before I could decide if it had ever been real. I kept moving and tried to ignore the faint whistle behind me that sounded like the wind threading around a shape it shouldn't have to avoid. I reached marker 16 and tightened it with a small wrench. When I stepped away, the sound that followed caught my attention immediately. My boot pressed into the gravel with a crisp crunch. A second crunch landed right behind mine. It was identical in weight and timing, just a heartbeat late. I tested it again, lifting my foot slowly. I stepped. The second step answered. I swung my flashlight across the ridge. The beam reached 50 yards in both directions, without catching a figure, shadow, or animal. The body heat monitor on my radio flickered once, then showed 0 signatures. The GPS froze on a repeated coordinate, as if the ridge had stopped existing around me. I shook both devices until they responded, but neither explained the extra footstep. I kept walking. The sound followed. If I sped up, it stayed at my heels. If I slowed, it matched my slower pace. It wasn't simple mimicry. It reacted to the weight of my steps, adjusting pressure as though studying the way I moved. The silence ahead grew heavy, not natural like dusk, but thick and still, as if the ridge held its breath. The air pressure shifted. My ears popped lightly, and the hair on my forearms rose. The metallic smell returned stronger, clinging to the back of my throat. I told myself it could be a cougar shadowing me from the rocks. But cougars don't walk step for step on gravel. They don't wait for you to move before they move. The radio cracked. My name came through the speaker in my own voice. Same cadence, same tone. The signal light stayed dark. No one was on the channel. I held the radio close to my ear while the copy of my voice repeated my name softly, as if speaking right beside me. I checked the handset, tapped the screen, and turned the volume low. The voice stopped only when I did. I reached a narrow section of the ridge where the wind usually roared. This time, it died completely. The quiet pressed in so hard I could hear my pulse in my teeth. I stepped forward carefully. The answering footstep landed so close behind me that I felt the vibration through the rock. I turned my head slowly, just enough to see motion in the edge of my vision. Something shifted behind a boulder 30 feet back. Not the full form, only a sliver. A limb moved in a way the wind could not mimic. The shape pulled back the moment I focused on it. My flashlight flickered once and steadied. When I aimed it directly at the boulder, the space behind it was empty. The gravel at the base of that rock was not. It held a fresh indentation, long and narrow, deeper than any print I could make. The sight twisted something in my stomach. I stepped back toward the main trail and kept moving, trying to act like nothing had changed. My hands shook so badly I had to clip the flashlight to my pack to keep it steady. The ridge curved toward a stand of trees. The moment I entered the canopy, the temperature dropped hard enough to sting my cheeks. The soil, soft under my boots. My steps sounded muted. The second footstep did not. It stayed crisp and deliberate, as if the ground didn't absorb any sound from it. I kept my pace slow so I could listen clearly. I tested the mimicry. I stopped, suddenly. The echo stopped late, half a second behind. I dragged my foot lightly through the dirt. The answer's step dragged with the same slow scrape. I tapped my heel twice. 2 delayed taps. Answered. The pattern wasn't perfect. It slipped, trying to adjust, as though learning me. I tried to keep my breathing measured. Panic makes people sloppy. Sloppy gets you dead on the ridge. I moved toward the clearing where the trail widened and offered better visibility. The air carried that iron scent so strongly now it felt like I had blood in my mouth. The forest around me stayed completely still. No rustle, no night calls, just that second step following too close to ignore. At the edge of the clearing, the moment finally hit. A pressure shifted the air behind me like someone tall leaned over my shoulder. A scrape touched the back of my pack, soft and deliberate. For a second, The light around me dimmed, as if something blocked the sun, even though the sky was open. I turned fully for the first time. The space behind me was empty, but the dirt held a print that didn't belong to any animal on the ridge. Long, narrow, deep. Another print appeared as I watched, pressed into the soil without a foot to make it. The ground dipped inward as if weight shifted forward, then stopped. I backed away. Carefully! I never took my eyes off the clearing until the trail sloped downward and the truck finally came into view. The second footstep faded at the same point the ridge opened onto the road. Sound returned. The wind picked up in a normal way. Birds finally called from the trees, as if waking from sleep. My radio clicked back to life, with ordinary static. At the station, the world looked normal. My equipment worked fine. My supervisor said it was probably a cougar shadowing me or maybe an echo off the rock. I didn't argue. I signed the end-of shift sheet and left. At home, the smell of iron followed me inside. I changed clothes twice before it faded. I walked down the hallway at midnight to get water. My bare foot pressed into the floor with a soft creak. A second creak answered. It landed exactly half a breath after mine. Thanks for listening. If you've ever experienced something you can't explain out in the wild, share your story in the comments below. And if you want more stories from the dark corners of the world, be sure to subscribe. Sleep well. I was working seasonal trail maintenance out near the Salt Basin Rim, clearing winter blowdowns and checking backpacker sites before summer use. That loop was usually quiet. Most of the regulars avoided it because the trail dipped into a hollow that held cold air even in June. I had done the route enough times to know every switchback by memory. The ranger who signed me out mentioned that the area had a reputation for strange acoustics, the kind that made wind sound like people talking. I shrugged it off. Weather and nerves can explain anything. The hike-in took most of the afternoon. The forest was still damp from a recent storm and the trail felt soft under my boots. Pine needles held the smell of rain, and every step released a scent of sap. I checked the trail signs, took notes, and kept my usual pace. There was nothing unusual. Even the wildlife acted calm. A couple of deer watched me pass, ears twitching but otherwise relaxed. Most places give some small warning when they're about to turn strange. That stretch of forest gave me nothing. By the time I reached the old backpacker site, the sun was already dropping behind the ridge. The clearing felt like every other time I had used it. 2 leaning ponderosas, a ring of stones, and a flat patch for the tent. He set up noted the temperature, and sent a standard check-in. Everything felt so normal that I barely thought about it. Sometimes comfort sneaks up on you. Sometimes that is when you should pay the closest attention. Night settled quickly. The cold crept in through the trees, and the clearing grew dark in a way that felt heavier than usual. I ate a simple dinner and wrote down the day's distances. Nothing out of place. I lay back, listening to the faint trickle of a creek somewhere past the ridge. The wind moved lightly through the branches, making a soft brushing sound. It was peaceful enough that my thoughts drifted. The first sound did not register as strange. A low hum, quiet and steady, almost like the forest exhaling. I listened for a moment, thinking it was wind moving through a narrow trunk. Then the hum shaped itself into a soft rise and fall, forming a melody. A lullaby, slow, careful, and oddly familiar. The realization made my chest tighten. No one should have been anywhere near that site. Primera sat up fast, the sleeping bag bunching around my waist. The tune floated in from the fire ring, weaving itself neatly between the branches. It was not loud. In fact, the quiet made it worse. Each note came with perfect clarity. No strain, no breath. The kind of smoothness people do not achieve when singing in the cold. I unzipped the tent flap just enough to look outside. The clearing was still and pale under the moonlight. Nothing moved. The song did not pause when I looked. It continued with the same slow rhythm. That was when I realized the melody was one my mother used to hum when I fell asleep as a kid. I had not heard it in years. The memory hit so sharply that for a moment I forgot to breathe. I grabbed the radio on instinct. The screen flickered once and went black. No response. I tapped it against my knee. Nothing. The lullaby changed slightly. A harmony slid under it, subtle at first, 10 stronger. 2 voices now. Both steady. Both identical. The trees around me seemed to lean inward as the forest quieted. My first thought was that someone might be in trouble. Maybe a hiker, lost or injured. But no one sings lullabies when they need help. I stayed still and listened. The melody drifted closer. There were no footsteps. No crunch of pine needles. Just the voice approaching with smooth, unnatural ease. A shadow passed along the outside wall of my tent. Long, slender, taller than any person I had ever seen stand straight. The head tilted as though listening. The singing softened until it felt like it was being whispered directly through the fabric. The silhouette raised a hand and pressed it gently against the nylon. The fingers were too long. The joints sat too far apart. The fabric indented slightly. The voice stopped mid-note. There was no breath. No shift. It resumed instantly with the exact same tone. No human can sing without a break. Something outside was trying to imitate the sound and doing it too well. I held my position. The hand lingered for several seconds that felt like minutes. Then the shadow withdrew, moving back toward the fire ring. The lullaby stretched into a slow, almost taunting rhythm. It repeated a pattern I recognized from childhood, a line my mother always hummed twice. Hearing it in that clearing made the air feel thin. The melody drifted toward the tree line. Just when I thought it was leaving, it changed again. The voice used my name. Soft, almost affectionate. The way someone might call to a tired child. Hearing my name inside that melody drained the heat from my body. The voice said it again, this time with a slight distortion, as if 2 mouths were trying to form the sound at once. I waited until the forest went fully quiet. Only when the birds began making their early morning calls did I step outside. The clearing looked normal. Nothing disturbed. No prints. No sign of another person. The only evidence was a series of long drag lines near the fire ring. Shallow grooves in the dust where something had knelt or crouched. I broke camp faster than usual. As soon as my radio powered on, I called in. The ranger on duty asked why I sounded out of breath. I told him the wind had kept me awake. It was easier than explaining the truth. On the hike out, the woods stayed calm. The sun came through the trees with warm color, and for a while the night felt far away. But halfway down the ridge, a breeze moved behind me, slow and teen. It carried a faint line of melody. Just a few notes, the end of that same lullaby. I did not stop to listen. I kept walking until the trail opened back onto the service road. When I reached the truck, I sat for a long time without turning the key. In the quiet, I thought I heard a single, soft hum behind me, almost like someone finishing a song they never got to complete. I drove without looking in the rear mirror. The desert wind has a way of whispering secrets, especially at night. In Lubbock, Texas, the wind doesn't just whisper, it howls. And some nights, it carries a story that will freeze the blood in your veins. A story about Buffalo Lake, a place many locals know holds a darkness that predates the city itself. This isn't just another campfire tale. This is what happened to my uncle, a man who swore he'd never set foot near that lake again after one terrifying night. It was the late 90s. My uncle, let's call him Mark, was a young, adventurous guy. He loved the outdoors, especially fishing. Buffalo Lake, with its eerie stillness under the vast Texas sky, was one of his favorite spots. He'd often go out late, claiming the fish bit better when the world was asleep. This one particular night in August, a thick, humid heat clung to the air even after the sun went down. The moon was a pale, shy sliver, offering little light. Mark packed his gear, told my aunt he'd be back by dawn, and drove his old pickup truck down the dusty roads leading to the lake. He found his usual spot, a secluded cove flanked by tall reeds and gnarled mesquite trees. The only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the gentle lapping of water against the shore. It was peaceful. For a while, as he cast his line, a strange feeling washed over him. The kind of feeling you get when you know you're being watched. He scanned the shoreline, his eyes trying to pierce the oppressive darkness. Nothing. He shrugged it off as just the heebie-jeebies, the desert playing tricks on his mind. But then, the crickets stopped. All at once, the silence that followed was deafening, unnatural. It felt heavy like a blanket smothering the world. A prickle of fear ran down Mark's spine. He reeled in his line, suddenly feeling exposed. That's when he heard it. A sound from across the cove, in the thicket of reeds. It was a cough. A dry, rasping cough, like someone was struggling for air. It sounded human, but also not. There was a guttural, animalistic quality to it that made his hair stand on end. "Hello?" He called out, his voice wavering slightly. "Is someone there? Do you need help?" Silence. Then, the sound of something heavy splashing into the water. Not a fish. This was bigger. Much bigger. Mark's heart hammered against his ribs. He grabbed his heavy-duty flashlight from his tackle box, its powerful beam cutting a sharp path through the night. He swept the light across the opposite bank, his hand trembling. At first, he saw nothing but swaying reeds. But then, the beam landed on it. For a split second, he saw the silhouette of a large coyote, its fur matted and dark, but it was standing on its hind legs. It was impossibly tall, its form distorted and wrong. Before his brain could even process the sight, it dropped to all fours and vanished back into the reeds with a speed that defied nature. Mark stood frozen, his breath caught in his throat, a coyote on two legs. It had to be a trick of the light, a shadow. He tried to rationalize it, to calm his racing mind. He decided to pack it in. The fish weren't worth this kind of fear. He started gathering his things, his movements hurried and clumsy. As he bent down to grab his cooler, he heard another sound, this time much closer. It was coming from the mesquite trees just behind him. A soft, melodic whistling. It was a tune he recognized, an old lullaby his own grandmother used to hum. The blood drained from his face. How? Who could possibly be out here, in the middle of nowhere, whistling a tune from his childhood? He slowly turned, shining his flashlight into the trees. And that's when he saw the eyes. 2 points of light, glowing with an amber, predatory fire. They weren't the reflective green of a cat or the dull yellow of a canine. They were intelligent. They were watching him. The whistling stopped, replaced by a low, rumbling growl that seemed to vibrate through the very ground. Panic took over. Mark abandoned his gear, sprinting towards his truck. He didn't dare look back. He could hear it crashing through the brush behind him, keeping pace with an unnerving ease. The sounds it made were a horrifying mix: the heavy footfalls of a man, the panting of a wolf, and something else. A clicking, chattering noise that sounded like bone grinding on bone. He fumbled with his keys, his hands shaking so violently he could barely fit the key into the ignition. The truck roared to life, and he slammed it into reverse, tires spinning in the loose dirt. As the headlights flared on, they illuminated the thing standing at the edge of the trees. It wasn't a man, and it wasn't an animal. It was a grotesque fusion of both. It stood on long, digitigrade legs like a dog, but its torso was unnervingly human-like, covered in patches, of course, dark fur. Its face was the stuff of nightmares, a long, canine snout, but with eyes that were horribly, undeniably human. They were filled with a cold, ancient malice. Its mouth hung open, and from it came a sound that would haunt my uncle for the rest of his life. It was his own voice, leaving so soon. It rasped, the words a perfect, chilling mimicry of his own speech, but twisted with a guttural, snarling undertone. Mark screamed and stomped on the gas pedal. The truck fishtailed onto the dirt road, and he sped away, not daring to check his rearview mirror. He could hear it, letting out a piercing shriek behind him, a sound of pure rage and frustration that echoed across the lake. He didn't slow down until the lights of Lubbock were a comforting glow on the horizon. He burst through his front door, pale and trembling, collapsing into my aunt's arms. He couldn't speak for nearly an hour, just shaking and pointing back in the direction of the lake. He left all his expensive fishing gear back there, his favorite rods, his tackle box, everything. He never went back to get it. He never went fishing at night again. 4 weeks afterward, he would wake up screaming, swearing He could hear whistling outside the bedroom window. Sometimes, late at night, their dog would start growling at the back door for no reason, its fur standing on end. My uncle sold his truck a month later. He said he couldn't stand driving it, couldn't shake the feeling that a piece of that night's horror was still clinging to it. The old stories say a skinwalker can steal your voice, your face, your very identity. It mimics you to lure in your loved ones. What my uncle saw that night at Buffalo Lake wasn't just an animal. It was a predator of a different kind, an ancient evil that wears the skins of others. It knew his grandmother's lullaby. It knew his voice. It was learning him. He got away, but the encounter left a permanent scar on his soul. So if you're ever out near Buffalo Lake after dark, and the crickets suddenly go silent, and you hear a familiar voice call your name from the shadows, don't answer. Just run. Because some things that wander the Texas plains are better left undisturbed. They've been there long before us, and they'll be there long after we're gone, waiting in the darkness for their next victim. Thanks for tuning in to this terrifying tale. If you have your own chilling encounter you'd like to share, drop it in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, so you don't miss our next descent into the unknown. Stay safe out there. My dad was an ornithologist, a bird guy. When I was a kid, he'd take me deep into the woods to his owl banding station. It was this tiny, weathered cabin, miles from anything. We'd set up mist nets, play recorded owl calls, and wait. The calls were eerie, echoing through the silent forest, hooting, screeching. It was our own secret language with the night. But there was one rule my dad was dead serious about. Never, ever mimic a call you don't recognize. He'd say, some things in these woods, they listen, and you don't want them answering back. He passed away 3 years ago. I inherited his passion, his research, and the keys to that old cabin. Last fall, I decided to go back to honor his memory and continue his work. The place was just as I remembered it, dusty, smelling of pine and old paper, filled with charts and bird guides. The first night was peaceful. I set up the nets, powered on the old recorder, and played a familiar barred owl call into the darkness. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? The sound drifted into the trees, and I waited. Nothing. I tried again. Silence. It was a quiet night, maybe too cold for the owls. I was about to pack it in when a sound came from the woods. It wasn't an owl. It was a strange, guttural clicking, followed by a low whistle. It was a call I'd never heard before. My dad's warning echoed in my mind, a cold not forming in my stomach, but curiosity, that dangerous human trait, got the better of me. Primera AD, my high-tech digital recorder now, far more advanced than Dad's old tape deck. I recorded the strange sound, cleaned it up a bit, and against every instinct, I played it back into the forest. For a long minute, the only sound was my own heartbeat. Then, a reply came. It wasn't the clicking or the whistle. It was a voice, a human voice, clear as day, cutting through the night. Alex, is that you, son? My blood ran cold. It was my father's voice, exactly as I remembered it. The same gentle tone he used when I'd scrape a knee or wake up from a nightmare. It couldn't be. He was gone. My hand trembled as I reached for the recorder. Was I losing my mind? Was it a memory? A trick of the wind? Primera de tu no. I played the strange, unknown call again, my finger hovering over the stop button. The woods fell silent once more, holding its breath, and then it came again, closer this time. Alex, come on out. I missed you. It was him. It was my dad's voice. Panic clawed at my throat. This was impossible. My logical mind screamed that it was a hallucination, a product of grief and solitude. But my gut, the primal part of me that my dad had taught me to trust in the wild, knew this was wrong. This was a trap. This was what he warned me about. The thing that listens, the thing that answers back. I fumbled with the cabin door, slamming it shut and throwing the bolt. My heart was a drum against my ribs. I turned off all the lights, plunging the tiny room into darkness, and crept to the window. Outside, The moon cast long skeletal shadows through the trees, and then I saw it. Movement. A tall, gaunt figure was stepping out from behind a thicket of pines, just at the edge of the clearing. It was too dark to see clearly, but it wasn't an animal. It was lanky, moving with a jerky, unnatural gait. "Son, why'd you lock the door? It's cold out here." My father's voice, filled with mock concern, drifted from the figure. It took a step closer, and another. It was impossibly thin, its limbs too long, bending at angles that weren't right. It wasn't walking, it was unfolding. I backed away from the window, pressing myself against the far wall, my hand over my mouth to stifle a scream. The scratching started at the door, not a knock, a dry, scraping sound, like claws on old wood. Alex let me in. "I have something to show you." The voice was still my father's, but it was losing its warmth. It was becoming flatter, more hollow. A perfect, soulless mimicry. I could hear it sniffing around the doorframe, testing the weaknesses in the old wood. The scratching grew more frantic, more aggressive, splintering the frame. Then it moved to the window. I saw its silhouette against the glass. It was huge, hunched over, its head cocked to one side as if listening. "I know you're in there," the voice hissed, distorted now, stretched and wrong. "I can smell your fear." It tapped a long, bony finger against the pane. Tap, tap, tap. Each sound was a hammer blow to my sanity. Suddenly, it stopped. The silence was even worse. I held my breath, straining to hear anything over the frantic pounding in my ears. Where did it go? Seconds stretched into eternity. Then, a new sound. It was coming from the roof. A heavy, dragging sound, like something massive crawling across the shingles. Thump, scrape, thump. It was directly above me. A low chuckle echoed through the cabin, but it wasn't coming from outside anymore. It was coming from the stone chimney. My father's laugh twisted into something nightmarish. I scrambled away from the fireplace, grabbing the heavy iron poker. Soot and dust began to rain down from the flue. A long, stick-like arm, covered in patchy, dark fur, snaked down from the chimney opening. It felt the air, its fingers twitching, before retracting back into the darkness. It knew I was trapped. It was toying with me. The scratching started again, this time at all the windows, all at once. The scraping on the roof, the sniffing at the door, the thing in the chimney. It was everywhere. It was trying to get in from every direction. I backed into a corner, clutching the poker, my eyes darting around the dark room. The cabin, once my sanctuary, had become a wooden tomb. And then, it started using other voices. The first was a woman, crying for help. Then a child, calling for its mummy. Voices of desperation and pain, echoing from the woods around the cabin. It was playing a symphony of terror, using the voices of its past victims. And in between each one, it would return to my father's voice, whispering my name. "Alex, Alex. You can't hide forever." I don't know how long I stayed like that, paralyzed by fear. It must have been hours. The assault on the cabin was relentless, but as the first hints of dawn began to gray the eastern sky, the sounds started to fade. The scratching stopped. The voices fell silent. The presence on the roof was gone. Cautiously, I waited until the sun was fully up, painting the forest in the safe, warm light of day. With trembling hands, I unbolted the door and peered outside. The clearing was empty. It was quiet, but the evidence of the night was everywhere. Deep, claw-like gouges scarred the door and window frames. The roof shingles were broken and displaced, and on the ground, leading back into the dense woods, were tracks. They weren't human, and they weren't from any animal I knew. Very long, misshapen footprints, pressed deep into the earth. I didn't pack. I left everything my dad's research, my equipment, all of it. I just grabbed my keys and ran. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, and I didn't look back. I drove until the sun was high in the sky, until the woods were just a dark line in my rearview mirror. I never went back to the owl banding station. I sold the land, but I can't escape what happened. Sometimes, late at night, when I'm alone, I hear it, a faint whistle on the wind. And sometimes, in the dead of sleep, I'm woken up by the sound of my father's voice, whispering my name from the darkness of my own room. He warned me, some things in the woods. Listen, and once they answer, they never, ever stop calling. The crisp mountain air was supposed to be a cure-all, a clean break from the smog and noise of the city. My girlfriend Clara and I had rented a remote cabin deep in the backcountry, a place promising nothing but pines and silence. We found it at the end of a long, rutted dirt road, a charmingly rustic A-frame with a huge picture window facing the dense forest. We were thrilled. That first day was we hiked, we laughed, and as dusk settled, we built a crackling fire in the stone hearth. It was perfect. That night, I woke up to a strange sound, a rhythmic, heavy thudding against the outside wall. I nudged Clara. "Did you hear that?" she mumbled, half asleep. I crept to the window, peering into the inky blackness. Nothing. Just the silhouette of trees against a starless sky. I dismissed it as a branch or an animal and went back to bed. But the feeling of being watched, that primal, hair-raising instinct, had already taken root. The next day, things felt off. The woods seemed quieter. The birds had stopped singing. While making coffee, I noticed a set of large, unusual tracks near the cabin's foundation. They weren't bare, and they weren't deer. They looked almost human, but elongated, with deep claw marks dug into the soft earth. Clara saw them too, her brow furrowing with concern. "Probably just a weird coyote," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. We decided to shake it off with another hike, venturing deeper into the forest than before. That's when we found the totems. They were crude effigies, woven from sticks, animal bones, and tufts of dark, coarse fur hanging from tree limbs. They were arranged in a loose circle, and a cold dread washed over me. This wasn't some hiker's art project. This felt ancient and territorial. Clara grabbed my arm, her face pale. "Let's go back," she whispered. We didn't need to be told twice. As we hurried back, the forest, which had been unnervingly silent, came alive, but not with the sounds of nature. It was a mimicry. We heard a faint, distorted echo of our own conversation from earlier that morning. Then, Clara's name, whispered in a voice that was almost mine, but not quite. It was raspy, guttural. We broke into a run, the sounds of snapping twigs chasing us all the way back to the cabin. We slammed the door, heartbeats hammering against our ribs, and bolted it shut. As evening fell, we sat in near silence, the cozy cabin now feeling like a trap. The fire did little to warm the chill that had settled deep in our bones. I tried to reassure Clara, to rationalize what we'd experienced, but the words felt hollow even to me. That's when I saw it. The picture window, which should have been a black mirror reflecting the cabin's interior, showed something wrong. The reflection was perfect, the roaring fire, the couch, the lamp. But there was a discrepancy. In the reflection, Clara and I were both sitting on the couch, but in reality, I was standing by the fireplace. My blood ran cold. I stared, mesmerized and horrified. My reflection was on the couch, sitting right next to Clara, its head slightly turned, a grin stretching its features into an unnatural, predatory smile. I slowly turned my head towards the real Clara. Her eyes were wide, fixed on the window. She had seen it too. "Liam," she breathed, her voice a fragile tremor. "Don't move." The figure in the reflection, the one wherein my face slowly lifted a hand and waved. Not at us. It was waving at something outside, in the darkness. Then, the thudding started again. Louder this time, right at the front door. Thud. Thud. It was followed by a scratching, a frantic, desperate clawing at the wood. A voice, a perfect imitation of my own, called out, "Clara, honey." I forgot my keys, Can you let me in?" I was standing right beside her. We scrambled backward, away from the door, away from the window. The thing in the reflection was now standing up, its grin wider, its eyes black pits. The banging on the door grew more violent, the wood groaning under the force. The voice outside started to change, twisting from my own into a chorus of guttural clicks and high-pitched shrieks, the sounds of 1,000 animals in their death throes. I grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace. Clara was sobbing, huddled in the corner. Primera adi no plan. There was nowhere to run. The window reflection showed the thing that looked like me walking towards the door from the inside. As if topo in Italiano, suddenly, the front window imploded. A shower of glass rained into the cabin as a massive, dark form lunged through the empty frame. It was impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs bent at unnatural angles. Its skin was like stretched, leathery hide, and its face was a nightmarish blend of coyote and man. With eyes that glowed with a faint, malevolent red, it let out a shriek that vibrated through my very soul. It wasn't after us. It lunged at the front door. The creature outside, the mimic, shrieked in response. They were fighting. The cabin became a whirlwind of snarling, clawing, and screaming as these two horrors tore at each other. We didn't wait to see who won. I grabbed Clara, and we scrambled out the shattered back window, cutting ourselves on the glass. We didn't look back. We just ran, fueled by pure terror. The sounds of the unholy battle fading behind us as we sprinted blindly through the dark woods, praying we'd find the road. We never went back to the backcountry. Some places are not meant for us, and some things are better left undisturbed. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Tales from the Shadows. Stay safe out there.